All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going on a little journey. We're going to build a web backend, conceptually, from the ground up. We'll start with just a single idea and see how all the pieces, all the modern tools like Node.js, fit together to create a real, working application. I mean, we all use websites every single day, right? But when you click a button to log in or save something to your profile, what's actually happening? That's the backend. It's the engine room. And today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see exactly how it all gets built.
So, our journey has to start with Node.js. You see, for the longest time, JavaScript was kind of stuck. It could only live and run inside your web browser. But Node.js completely changed the game. It basically took JavaScript, broke it out of the browser, and let it run free on the server. This was its second act, and it was a big one.
And this right here, this is the fundamental power shift. In the browser, JavaScript is in a sandbox, for security. It can't just go snooping around your computer's files. But on the server, whoa, Node.js has no such limits. It can read and write files, connect directly to databases, perform really heavy-duty operations, all the stuff that browser JavaScript could only ever dream of.
So, if you're coming from front-end development, there are a few mental adjustments you gotta make. For starters, your console.log messages, they're not going to show up in the browser's DevTools anymore. You'll see them right in your command line terminal. That familiar window object is gone, replaced by something called global. And instead of import, you'll use require to pull in other code, including these incredibly powerful built-in modules that let you do things like check the operating system or, read and write files directly.
But here's the best part. You don't have to build every single thing from scratch. No way. That would be exhausting. That's where NPM, the Node Package Manager, comes into play. Just think of it like an app store, but for code. It's this massive, gigantic library of free, reusable code packages that other developers have already built and perfected. It lets you stand on the shoulders of giants, instead of, constantly reinventing the wheel.
Okay, so we've got Node.js, and we have this whole universe of packages thanks to NPM. We could, technically, start building a server right now. But there's a catch. And it's a pretty big one if you try to do it with Node's raw built-in tools.
Yeah, using Node's native HTTP module is kind of like trying to build a car from just a pile of individual nuts and bolts. I mean, you could do it and you'd learn a ton, but it's super time-consuming. Your code would quickly become this tangled, unreadable mess of logic just trying to figure out which URL a user is even asking for.
And this is where Express.js comes in to save the day. Express is a framework that sits right on top of Node.js. It doesn't hide any of Node's power, it just gives you a really clean, simple, and organized structure for building your servers and APIs. It handles all the messy, repetitive stuff so you can focus on what makes your application special.
And this just says it all, doesn't it? Look at the difference. On the left, you've got the native Node.js routing nightmare, a jungle of if statements. And on the right, that's Express. It's beautiful. It's readable. You want to handle a user trying to get your homepage? It's just app.get/bracket. It's all about clarity and organization.
Now we're getting to the real magic of how Express actually works. It's all built on this one core concept called middleware. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like an assembly line for every single request that comes into your server.
So, what is a middleware? Well, at its heart, it's just a function. That's it. But it's a special function that gets to sit right in the middle of a request and its final response. It can look at the request, it can change things, or it can even stop the request right there. The real key, though, is that next function. It's like a pass that tells the request, okay, you're good here, you can move on to the next station on the line.
So let's trace a request's journey. Okay, boom, it arrives at your server. First stop, a logging middleware. Its only job is to record what was asked for, and then it calls next. Next stop, an authentication middleware. Does this user have permission to be here? If yes, great, call next. Finally, it reaches the actual route handler, the end of the line, which sends back the data. Each step is its own neat, reusable piece of logic. It's so clean.
And speaking of authentication, that's our next crucial piece. How do we know who's who? How do we protect our users' data and lock down certain parts of our app? Well, that's the job for our application's own digital bouncer.
This whole process is a really careful dance. So a user signs up, but, and this is so important, we never ever store their actual password. Instead, we use a tool like Bcrypt to scramble it into a secure, unreadable hash. Then, when they try to log in, we hash what they typed and just see if the two hashes match.
If they do, we don't just let them in. We issue them a special digital key called a JSON Web Token, or JWT for short. Now, this is a really clever security concept. We actually issue 2 tokens. The first is the access token. Think of it like a ticket to a concert. It's short-lived, maybe 15 minutes, and you have to show it every time you want to access a protected page. When it expires, you use the second, long-lived refresh token. That one is like your ID card. You keep it tucked away safely, and you only use it to go get a new concert ticket without having to go through the whole login process again. It's a fantastic security pattern.
Okay, our server is getting pretty smart. It can handle requests, it knows who users are, but it has the memory of a goldfish. Right now, it can't remember anything after it restarts. We need a real, permanent place to store our data. We need a database. So let's talk about MongoDB.
For a long time, databases were mostly SQL databases. You can think of these like a really strict spreadsheet. You have to define all your columns ahead of time, and every single row has to follow that exact structure. MongoDB, on the other hand, is what we call a NoSQL database. It stores data in these flexible documents that look exactly like the JSON we're already using in JavaScript. This makes it so much more adaptable for applications that are constantly growing and changing.
So why would you pick this approach? Well, for a few huge reasons. First, for a JavaScript developer, it just feels natural. You're working with data that looks exactly like the objects you're used to. Second, that flexibility is a game changer. You can change your data structure on the fly without breaking your whole application. And finally, it's built for the modern web. It's fast, and it's designed to scale up to handle tons of traffic.
Now, to make our lives even easier when talking to MongoDB from our Node.js app, we use a library called Mongoose. Honestly, the best way to think of Mongoose is as a helpful translator. It lets us create a schema, sort of a blueprint for what our data should look like, and then it handles all the complicated database commands for us. We just get to work with simple JavaScript objects, and Mongoose does all the heavy lifting.
And that's pretty much it. We did it. We started with Node.js to get JavaScript running on a server. We used Express to give our app some structure. We handled requests with our middleware assembly line, secured it all with tokens, and gave it a permanent memory with MongoDB and Mongoose. These are the core building blocks you'll find in countless modern web applications out there today. So, we've pieced the whole puzzle together, right? We've gone from a simple script to a secure, data-driven backend. You've seen the map, you understand the core concepts. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with it? Thanks for coming along on the journey.